You may be seated. We'll continue on page 586, where we'll finish. Thank you. Sorry. My blood sugar alarm's going off. All right, so this week we start Shemot, names. That's the Hebrew name for it. Shemot. Ivri Shemot. Names in Hebrew. And Shemot is plural. Okay, just so you know. Anyways, and I know a lot of people ask, well, in English we call it Exodus because it talks about the Exodus, right? But why do we call it Shemot, names? It's tradition that when the beginning of a book we usually take what's there and go with the first aspect of what we see here, right? Both are correct, right? But this one is the names, Shemot. And in this we see that, remember in the last Torah portion we see that Joseph unknowingly set the stage for Israel to become slaves to Egypt, okay? Unknowingly, he was taking care of his family. But this goes on and on every generation. Yes?
I would just like to say, think of it this way. There's power in the name. If you can name something, you have control over it.
Yeah. If you can name something, you have control over it. Usually that's why slave masters usually change the names of slaves, like we see that with Babylon and stuff like that with the Hebrew slaves there and so forth, right? And so with all this, Israel was being successful, and it goes on to say, it gives us all, the whole family of Israel that came, 70 people. Of course, Joseph, his wife, and his 2 sons were already there, it says, but 70 came to Egypt, right? Number 7, which represents the nations, okay? So from the nations to the nations, Israel comes from and goes to, right? And eventually, Joseph and his brothers in that generation, they die, right? They pass on. But it says that the descendants of Israel were fruitful, increased abundantly, multiplied, and grew very powerful. The land became filled with them. And this is something that has repeated many times in our history, is that as we have moved in the diaspora and outside of Israel, we have moved into other countries and stuff, and we've become successful. We've come to power, in essence, you might say, many times, many countries. And every time this has happened, all of a sudden, it says, now there arose a new king over Egypt, and he knew nothing about Joseph. Okay? What do you mean a new king comes? Well, the Hakosis was another tribe of Egypt, okay? And they came to power, took power from the old dynasty of Egypt, okay? And created a new dynasty. And yes, he knew about Joseph. He knew about, the thing that's being said here is that he knew about Joseph, and in his eyes, it's like what happens in these countries too, especially like we take Nazi Germany as a fact. The Jews were successful in Germany. As a matter of fact, Germany was called by the Jewish people the Golden Land because they were so successful there and peaceful and stuff, right? And what it is that Pharaoh, the new Pharaoh, turned on the Jewish people, on the Hebrews, seeing how successful they were, seeing how powerful they were. He became jealous of them, and he became afraid of them. And that's kind of what has happened with our people over the millenniums, over the 3,000, 4,000 years that we've been here, that God has made us a people. is that wherever we go, the people become afraid of us. We are blessed. I mean, look how many Jewish people are Nobel Prize winners, okay? Compared to the rest of the world, that's astonishing. You know, the founder of the antibiotic for huh? Well, yeah, but I mean the smallpox,
Smallpox, yeah.
right? And many of them were Jewish, you know. And what's interesting is that in Judaism today, many, I mean, look at Einstein. Einstein was Jewish. He was Orthodox. He believed in the Torah. He believed in the Bible, and his understanding of science of the world came from the Torah, not from secular, atheistic human thinking. Okay. And you know, look at I mean, they have preserved a lot of his stuff. Why? Because nobody understands it, but they figure somebody's going to come along that's going to know this, right? That he was so far advanced in what was going on.
Kind of applied Torah to what Newton did before.
Yeah, yeah. And who was Newton? Newton was Jewish also. Hello. You know, a lot of these famous scientists and stuff, we find out they're Jewish. Why? Why is it like that? You know, even today, like we were talking on Wednesday night about gematria, using gematria, numbers. Each Hebrew letter has a specific numerical value. Each Hebrew word has a specific numerical value. And you bring all those same words together with the same numerical value, and we see a pattern, right?
And it's also musical.
And it's also musical.
Speaking of the Nobel Prize, I can't remember the guy's name, but he won a Nobel Prize because he found out that the periodic table and the octet, or what makes up music, have actual, what is it, how do they put that, concrete, what is it, they apply to each other, yeah, they share characteristics.
Share characteristics. Okay, yeah.
That's what it is.
Okay, yeah, exactly. It does. Hebrew is the only language, and it's where all languages come from. But Hebrew is the only language that has numerical value. Its letters are pictures. Its letters are an alphabet, but also musical notes. That's why when you hear people talking about chanting the Torah, it's because those the Hebrew is sung. You know, I don't do it. I don't know it that very well in that sense, so I don't sing it. But one of my favorite rabbis, Rabbi Yehoshua Gordon, who passed away of blessed memory, it was funny. Every time he read the Torah, even in English, he would sing it. You know, and it was awesome. You know, that he would do that because there's a tune that goes with it, and in the Hebrew, and then and in the English you can sing there too. And what's interesting is that all languages come from Hebrew, not modern Hebrew. I'm talking about the ancient Hebrew, the Hebrew of Abraham's day. Okay, it can all go back to that. There's another real good rabbi. I can't remember his name offhand, but he's got on YouTube. He's got there's about 2 hours long lessons on Hebrew and the world languages, and he shows how the world languages came from Hebrew. There's a lot of things in there that, well, even like when you know, the word for rest is Shabbat, right, or Sabbath, right? We call. And in many of the other languages around the world, you know, in this country and in the English country and stuff, we use like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like that, right? But when it comes to the seventh day, we always say Saturday. But in other languages, especially in Latin and stuff, it's Sabbata, Sabbatone, something like that. It's one of those. You can see the word Sabbath in it.
And even,
You know?
even that, it's Saturn is Seder.
Yeah.
And like
So-
the alphabet is, if you take the Hebrew letters and you flip them around, so like A and Aleph, flip them around and write them the opposite direction.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, what we're getting to here is that the new king comes, and he says he doesn't know Joseph. Basically, what he's saying is not that he doesn't know Joseph, but he doesn't care about Joseph. He's afraid of his people. He's scared, and that's what he even says. Look, the descendants of Israel have become a people too numerous and powerful for us. Come, let's use wisdom in dealing with them. Otherwise, they'll continue to multiply, and in the event of war, they might ally themselves with our enemies, fight against us, and leave the land altogether. Of course, we're going to leave the land altogether. But the thing is, those are some of the same things that other countries have said. You know, that they're going to turn on us, that they're going to turn and join our enemies and stuff, right? And the other thing is that they've got wealth. We're going to take that wealth because we need it. Egypt needed it for its war machine, as empire building, right? And a lot of the countries did the same thing. Nazi Germany, what did they do? They took all the wealth of the Jewish people, took their property, everything, paintings, stuff like that. We're still trying to find paintings and gold teeth, yeah, gold glasses, gold, I mean, a lot of stuff, right? Yeah. So, so we see this is this is not the first time we've seen it. This is the first time we see it here, in essence. It comes out. But the new Pharaoh is afraid of the Jews. And so he says, let us deal wisely with them. You know, and that's not, when it says wisely, he's not talking about in wisdom, but he's talking about in being sneaky. What's that word?
It's like the serpent thing.
Yeah. Sly, underhanded, basically that, you know, can't remember the word offhand now, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Clever, sneaky about it, right? And eventually get them to fall under their spell and become what? Slaves to Egypt. Okay? And that's what happens. And they put slave masters over them to oppress them, forced labor, and they built for Pharaoh the storage cities of Pithom and Ramesses. Now, the reason why we say these weren't necessarily called that at the time, but they're there later when Moses is writing this down later that he uses those terms, because now we have a geographical understanding of, okay, where they were, because now archaeology has shown us where Pithom and Ramesses was, but of course at the time of the Hebrews it wasn't called that because Pithom and Ramesses hadn't come to power yet. Okay? But later on they did, and that's interesting how they became named that, right? But they built all these different things for them, and then what's interesting is that now they become slaves. And remember, Egypt is a reflection of the world, okay? And people become enslaved to their work, and in this sense, to our government. To our government, not just our government, but many other governments. We rely too much on government for things. And that's what they want. That's what Pharaoh wants. He's portraying himself as God, right? So people should rely on him, right? That's what these leaders are talking about. And that's why socialism, communism is so bad. That's why it has to be secular. It can't be religious, because if you're religious, you can't be a communist and you can't be a socialist, okay? Because the two ideas are contrary to each other. They promote a one system, a one-person system, a one government, that we're relying on the government for everything and not God. That's why, especially in the communist countries, but in many socialist countries, religion has no rights, and even in the Soviet Union and so forth in China, religion was put down, you know. But they can't stop the people, they can't stop God, so it's continued to grow, right? Yeah. Yeah, and so, and that's why when we see these pictures of these leaders and dictators and stuff like that, you know, they are promoting themselves ahead of God. And we have to be careful of that in this country too. And I'll tell you what, I do like Trump. I don't agree with everything he does, but I do like a lot of what he's doing. But I don't like it when I hear people putting him up there on a statue or putting him up there on a pedestal. He's a man. He's a human being. God is using him. God has used all the leaders in the world, some for good, some for bad, to get his will done. And in this case, Pharaoh is being used by God in a way that would bring the cohesion of Israel together to be a nation, go through the suffering, and bring them out as an army, as a nation of God, as a people of God, right?
Brings that out when it's talking about the story. It says that God changed his heart.
Mm-hmm.
He turned him in the way that he wanted him to go.
Right,
in order
right.
to bring about the outcome he wanted.
Yep.
And speaking of jots and fiddles, the Gesh, or the little dot in the hay, which turns it from a pay to a fay, when Pharaoh's heart hardens, there's a little dot in it. When he repents, the dot goes away. It's like a stone.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing, too, is that it's not that God made him do this either. It was already in his heart to do. It was already an intent in him. God just allowed it to come out because God was going to use that, you know. And we see that today, even today. You know, I know a lot of people will say, yeah, we vote and stuff like that, but ultimately, we get the leader that God chooses for us, that we deserve, okay? As a people, we get the leader we deserve. It's sorry to say, that's what goes on. We might vote, but ultimately God is the one who chooses for us. In that sense, because in everything he is in control, and he's bringing about his purpose. And we may not understand it because we're finite. He is infinite. He has this big picture, but all we see is just a little part of it. It's just a drop in a bucket like they talk about. All we see, we don't see the vast ocean, we just see that little drop, right? And that's all we need to see. We just need to have faith like Abraham had. He didn't get to see Israel become a nation or anything like that, but God did show him parts of it, and he believed God that this would happen. That's why it says he was searching for a city built without hands. What is that city? The New Jerusalem? It's God's kingdom, of his people, of not just Israel, but of the nations that take hold of Israel, like we read in Zechariah 8:23. Again, it's a very good place to go to, because that's the goal. What happened is that, Adam sinned, and in essence gave the world to the adversary. God ultimately rules and owns. But in this progression, we see that, as Yeshua even said, the God of this world, who is that? Satan. Okay, and it doesn't mean he's a God, okay? It means that he's the one in power, okay? And that's why the adversary could come to Yeshua and tempt him and say, and even offer him the nations, because God had put it in his hands, because Adam put it in his hands. God had given the world to Adam, and then Adam, in a sense, gave it to the adversary. Yes?
You know, we were thinking of Newton, and so think of Newton's laws of motion, right? So the devil does these big, huge things, right? You know, but it backfires. And when God pushes back, it's just little things. And so an object in motion will stay in motion until an unbalanced force acts upon it.
Exponent, yeah.
An object at rest will stay at rest until an unbalanced force acts upon it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Third law of motion.
Yeah. And yes, and so anyways, so we see here Israel becomes slaves to Egypt, okay? Slaves to the system. We have become slaves to the system. Wealth and everything is a great thing to have, and its power and stuff, but a lot of times it drags us underneath. It's not our friend, okay? Wealth is not our friend, although it's good to have. The thing is, what happens is what we see here is that it can turn on us. We get comfortable in where we're at. We become stagnant. And pretty soon things are happening and we don't do anything about it because we're comfortable. We don't want to rock the boat, you know. And so we let what comes in pretty soon, all of a sudden we're wondering why we're up chest deep in water. What happened? And by that time, a lot of times, it's too late to change things. Now it's time to either start swimming or drown, right? Because we let it go. And so that's what we see here. That's basically what happened. Making their lives bitter with labor, digging clay, making bricks, all kinds of field work, and in all this toil, they were shown no mercy. And that's what governments do. I mean, God is the one who gives governments power and stuff. But because mankind runs those governments, governments basically have no mercy. How many times have you, like to a bank, for just say, and you've missed a couple payments on your house, and you try and go in there and say, hey, I will make this up, but I need some mercy. And what does the bank say? Just like the government. Absolutely not. No, you either pay it now or you're going to get kicked out, right? That's the way it is with the government is too. You either pay your taxes now or you're done. You know, you're going to prison. There's no mercy. The government has no mercy. And that's the thing that we see with Pharaoh. No mercy. No mercy. And then, not only that, but he does a Holocaust. The first one that we see here. Takes baby boys. And that's the thing. Why baby boys? If they wanted to keep them from reproducing, why didn't he go after the girls?
They're less of a threat.
Are they?
You can take them and you can, what is it like, Leal Peor did, what was his name, and try to convince the women to come in and agree with us, and or
Yeah.
vice versa, and
Yeah,
reverse,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's in that sense, you know, the women were weaker. They didn't have a military force. They didn't really do any fighting and stuff like that, right? And that's basically what man basically thought. Although,
But he forgot that Jewish women are the ones who teach their children.
right, exactly. But if you're going to get rid of the males, well, it's unwise because you're getting rid of your labor force, the ones who do most of the work in this sense, in this time period, right?
A different type of labor.
And a different type of labor, yep. And the thing is, we've seen that with a lot of these different leaders over the ages have done this stuff, including like, Hitler. The military mistakes that he made cost him, which was great on our behalf.
Well, he was unflexible.
Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of the stuff there, because of his thinking he is wise and more than God and stuff like that, they think that, you don't question his power, you don't question his methods, right? And they did, nobody did. Same thing with Pharaoh here, until later on when things are getting desperate, right? We'll see that. But Israel is in the world, okay? In Egypt is the world. And now we've come to, this is a picture of what has taken place before. What's taking place now too is that Israel's a nation again, but it took a fire to make us a nation. And when I say fire, I'm talking Shoah, the Shoah in particular, the Holocaust. It says that the prophets speak that Israel will be born in fire or reborn in fire. That's the fire. Israel is reborn in fire, the Shoah. And it's important to know that because from that, yes, Israel basically has a secular government right now, but time's coming when Yeshua will be here to lead that government. It'll become a theocracy again. But this time we'll have our King David, our son of David will be the king at that time. But Israel, we can see Israel changing. That no longer are they the valley of dry bones. And no longer are they the bodies that have been put all back together and stuff without a spirit, because we see the spirit starting to move in Israel and amongst the Jewish people, right? So it's there. We're watching it. The time is close. We're in that time period. A lot of the Christians over the ages have thought, every time, the coming of the Messiah is coming soon. Well, the problem is that there was one thing they were missing: Israel. Yeshua said Israel will become a nation again. When you've seen the fig tree blossom again, right? Talking about Israel. And that's what's happened. Israel is blossoming. And not only that, like we were saying, October 7th came, and others tried to take Yeshua and make him one of them. Make him, hey, he's one of us. He's not Jewish. He's not, and famous rabbis and leaders of Israel came together. No, you're not taking. He's one of us. He's ours. You can't take him. And just like with Joseph, with Judah, saying, no, you can't take Benjamin. He is us. You can take me if you want, but you're not taking Benjamin. You're not. No. So, so yeah, and so we're seeing that now. So as Israel defends Benjamin, defends Yeshua, pretty soon the time is coming when he's going to reveal himself. And it says that they will see whom they have pierced, and then they will mourn as one mourns for a lost son. Why? Because they didn't recognize it at first. But we see that Rav Shaul says that they needed. Why? Because the Gentiles were coming to faith. Because Israel didn't repent and the kingdom did not enter in the time of God's has held off on the coming of the kingdom, so that the time of the Gentiles that were going to come in, will come in. But as we can see now, he's turning back to Israel. The time of the Gentiles has come to an end per se. It's a beginning of it. It's not something that's just cut off right now. It's a process, but it's also a process for Israel to become back to God in that same sense too. And we're starting to see that. And so we see that Israel goes into slavery, and all this stuff here is going on, and the persecutions start, right? But yet, it says in chapter 2, a man from the family of Levi took a woman also descended from Levi as his wife. When she conceived and had a son, upon seeing what a fine child he was, she hid him for 3 months. There's that number 3. The other thing is, a fine child. It's not saying physically stuff like that. It's seeing that she could see spiritually that there was something very special about this child, and he needed to be protected. But then it came about that a time came that she couldn't protect him anymore, so she had to do something else. Well, where would she get this idea of building a basket and floating him down the river? Isn't that like certain death most likely? Yeah, he did. Technically. Well, I'm sure she probably did, yeah. Being from Levi. Levi has always seemed to be the priestly family, but yeah. But so I believe that she got the word from God, that God gave that in her heart to do that. And then Miriam followed it to see what, because I think Miriam had faith too that God was going to do something special with this child.
Remember that when his brother Aaron, he just thought he was an Egyptian walking up to him at first. Before he said, was it Esher and Yehesha, later, this is Moshe, he was going to kill him. That's a midrash.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then he heard that, and he was like, well.
Yeah. Why? Why would he say he was going to, he's walking there, God tells him, and that's the thing, God tells him, go into the desert. Yeah. He goes. He doesn't say he questions him or anything like that. He says he goes, right? And yes, I know the midrash that says that that he thought it was an Egyptian coming out to get him, and he was planning on killing him until he rendered the name Eye Esher Eye, right? And at that point, he recognized him. They recognized each other. And why? Because he was of the tribe of Levi, who basically was already, even according to Jewish tradition, a tribe of priests in a way. They weren't officially called the priests, but they were a higher spiritual level than the rest of the tribes. They were the ones who kept the stories going of Genesis and so forth, and the stories of God and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and so forth.
There's a saying too that none but a person that will see the face of God, or who has seen the face of
Yeah. So that's what we see. And Moses is our first redeemer. Now, I mean, we have other redeemers, but he's known as the first redeemer. Why? Because he's the first that comes from Israel. Okay? Now, we have Joseph is also a picture of the redeemer. His whole picture is about the first and the middle and the second coming of Messiah, all these different things. And yes, he delivered Israel, but he also delivered the world, right? And Moses is known as the first redeemer. Okay? Simply for the fact that we have a similar story. He's born, he's a baby, there's something special about him. His mother protects him, miraculously protected by God. And he's raised in a Gentile's house. In essence, but the interesting thing is that Pharaoh's daughter, knowing the law that her brother, her father, I mean, has said, defies it. She has compassion. She could see that there's something special about him. And his sister Miriam says, hey, want me to go get one of the Hebrew women to suckle him? And he says, yeah. And who does she get? His own mother. His own mother. And usually, they're about 6 or 7 when they're 5, 6 when they're weaned. And in that time, I'm sure he knew who he was, that she had told him who he was. That's why it says he went out one day to see his people. But he was still being raised as a prince of Egypt, unbeknownst to the rest of them, right? Only his mother, only the Egyptian princess knew, right?
And that's why they call her Batel, the daughter of God.
Daughter of God. So we see that he's raised in there, right? And again, the story, we see the similarities to Joseph, is that he's dressed as an Egyptian. Nobody really recognizes him, right? And even when he goes out and argues with one of his people, a couple of his people who are fighting, they don't recognize his authority either. They just think of him as just a regular Egyptian too. Who are you who has made you Lord over us, right? And that's kind of way we see with Israel for a long time, with the Jews, since Yeshua, who made Jesus ruler over us, we didn't choose him, right? But God did. God chose Moses. And what's interesting here is that Moses, then, we see he's out, he's learning to be what? A shepherd, right? And it's interesting that this guy has 7 daughters. The number 7. So 3 is a number for healing and resurrection. So when he's in 3 months, you had to let him go. Resurrection, as in a sense, in a secular or in a Gentile home, but still, it's the same person, right? 7 is the number for completion. He marries the oldest daughter, and he has 2 sons, right? And then God calls him. He's been out there. He left when he was age 40. At age 80, God calls him to go do this wonderful thing. Maybe a little bit before 80, but basically, he's old, right?
He's thinking, why can't you just let me play shuffleboard? I'm 80 years old.
Yeah. So, anyway, so God calls this old man who God has been training, being unbeknownst to him, to be a leader, to lead the people as a shepherd. And he sends them back, right? And he gives them these, Moses is like, hey, I can't do it. I can't even speak, let alone, they're not going to trust me. They don't even know me, And he says, but, okay, fine, but who am I to say is going to send me? Who are you? What's your name so I can tell them? Because they're going to ask me that. They are, because Jewish people are always asking questions when somebody comes out. Oh, yeah, where'd you get your degree? Who's your grandfather or your great-grandfather? Or they're always asking questions about who you are to find out, who are you? What makes you think I should listen to you, right? And so God tells them, Eye Asher Eye, I will be that I will be. I know a lot of the English translation is I am that I am, but that's not correct. It's I will be who I will be. That's more of the correct rendition. of what AA Asher AA means. So, and he says, AA has sent me, right? And he has these tricks that God gives him, these miracles that look like they're, you know, the magicians are able to do. We'll find that out later, but to the Hebrew people, it's like, yeah, oh, wow, you know, a prophet in our midst, right? And so they believe him, but lo and behold, as they go there, you know, their hopes are dashed, right? And Pharaoh comes down hard on them to the point where they have to go get their own straw. And what does it do? It causes the Jews to be separated. It says that they were scattered. Scattered over Egypt. Scattered over the world. Hello. Only the Messiah can bring them together again, you see? We see that picture. So Israel is scattered across Egypt. For what? To go get straw. To go. Well, where does straw come from? Wheat and barley, right? To search out straw, to search out the Word of God. That's what that symbolizes. But they're scattered. It's not the first time they're going to be scattered.
But wait a second, what about the grains of wheat and barley too? That represents the Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
So they're
Yep.
gathering up with
So they're gathering up the Jewish people in that sense, right? Going to the four corners of Egypt looking for this straw and stuff like that. And in the meantime, they're being persecuted even more, right? And when this happens, and the Jewish leaders, you know, they see Moses and Aaron standing by the road, they accuse, may God judge you for what you've done to us, right? The brothers reject him. His people reject him. Where does he go? It says he goes back to God. It says that he goes back to Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb. That's where he goes. He leaves there. He goes. He's like, I did what you said. I failed. I'm leaving. You know, I can't do this. And he goes and says, gets there and God, what have you done? I did what you said, and it didn't happen. And now they hate me. Then God tells him, go back. He says, and that's what the beautiful thing. This is the awesome thing, I think, of chapter 6, verse 1. Adonai said to Moshe, now you will see what I am going to do to Pharaoh. With a mighty hand he will send them off. With force he will drive them from the land. Now you will see what I'm going to do. You did it, but now you're going to see what I'm going to do. And that's the same thing with Yeshua. Yeshua is the second Redeemer. And with Yeshua, God says, now see what I'm going to do. And that's what he's done. So as we go this week, we need to really realize, think about that. You know, all these things are a picture of God's plan. And we see little bits of it here and there. And as Yeshua even said, the Torah and the prophets speak of him. It's all about him. And we see that. Even in the very beginning of Shemot, names. Because there's the Exodus coming. It even says, I think it's in Isaiah, where it says that the Exodus from Egypt is going to be nothing compared to the Exodus that's coming. Where God will gather all his people from all over the world where he has scattered them. And that's the same picture, is that when Moses comes, he gathers the children of Israel from all over the parts of Egypt. And they leave in a great company. Not only that, but a mixed company, it says. And we're going to see that. So it's not just Israel leaving, but Gentiles who have taken hold of that Jewish man's corner of his garment, the tzitzit, and say, we want to go with you, for we've seen that God is with you. That's what we're going to see. That's what we're seeing. That's the picture. Again, the picture. So think about it. Where do we stand? You know, are we out looking for the Word of God? Are we out reading his Word? Are we studying his Word? Are we praying? Are we building a relationship with God through Yeshua, our Messiah, the Messiah he sent to us, who came as a prophet but is coming as the King? Think about it. bow our heads for the priestly blessing. Our God and God of our fathers, bless us with the threefold blessing in the Torah written by the hand of Moses, your servant, and pronounced by Aharon and his sons, the priests, your holy people, as it is said. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May it be your will. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May it be your will. May the Lord turn his face toward you and grant you peace. May it be your will. Yevarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Yair Adonai panav v'chunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Go in peace. Have a peaceful Sabbath. A great week this week. Keep me in your prayers because the adversary continues to attack me with work and stuff at my job and stuff. That just things, a lot of things going on, and I need prayer. I need help with that. I wasn't even sure if I was going to be here this morning for this because of some of the stuff going on. So just keep me up in prayer. Right. So keep me up in prayer in that way. All right, this week we have Tuesday night our Torah Club study at 7. Please join us. Torah Club, you can find that at ffoz.org or torahclub.org from First Fruits of Zion. Awesome teachings. They got all kinds of awesome teachings and stuff ready to go. And our Wednesday night study where we're studying the Tent of David by Boaz Michael. Awesome book talking about Gentiles and their place and stuff. And how we work together as a congregation, as a kalal, people, congregation, okay, in the kingdom of Messiah. And you're welcome to join us there. We do it on Zoom. Some people join us here, but most people join us on Zoom because a lot of people are from quite a ways away. So it's getting out there, and you're welcome to join us. Just on here, just send me your email address and I can send you a link. I'll let you know that we've sent it. So I usually send it to your email and you can just click on it and there you go. But also, be safe out there, those of you with the snow and stuff going on and stuff, the slippery roads. But otherwise, I thank you all for joining us here today, those that came and those that are online here. So, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Good Shabbos.